Welcome to the show, everyone. This is our first two-part episode, and we talk about culture and what that is in relation to sales and different companies and how we view it. And there's a lot in these two episodes, which is why we made it into two and not just one. But culture means different things to different people, and there's going to be very big differences between the four of us and what we see as important in our cultures. So, listen in. If you know someone who is struggling with their culture in their company, please share this with them. Sales is hard enough; it doesn't have to be all out there on your own. And if you have a question or want to give us some feedback, everything is at Sales Throwdown on social media. And if you want to take the assessment, send us an email, assessments@salesthrowdown.com. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. In the D corner, we have Clint the Cleaver Bigelow. In the I corner, we have Al the Gambler Daniel. In the S corner, we have Nan the Promoter Foreman. In the C corner, we have John Small Mountain Hill. Let's get ready to throw down!
Welcome to the show, everybody. Today we are talking about kind of a couple of different topics: sales culture, making changes when you're the new guy, or all of that stuff. And this kind of started with just some talking before the show and kind of complaining because how do you know when you're in the right culture? How do you vet that when you're looking to potentially make a move? How do you know that you're in the right spot? How do you know it's not time to make a change? And
or even that the change you made, what's that acclimation process to being part of a crew or being a sales manager?
Absolutely.
If you pop the promotion, but it's a sideways move from one company to the other, and you walk into being in charge of a group, or you just hire on new and you got to figure it out.
Absolutely, right. And this topic kind of came from how long do you give somebody to figure out if they're going to be successful or not? How much time do you invest? How much training? How much hand holding? How do you know you've given someone the full length?
But there's a reverse side of every coin that we talk about, guys, here. Because if we're saying how much time do we give somebody, if you're real new to sales, how much time do you have?
Oh, that's super true, right? Because a lot of people want to put you on super low base, so that way you're hungry to go out and get the commission. And then you can only live on a super low base for so long, especially if you take a pay cut to move into a position or something along those lines.
Or how do you work your deal even if you're new and make sure that you're guaranteed? Because I understand, just shooting from the hip, there's a couple of ways to do it. Sometimes you get a big starting salary, but you're expected so much that you never, it's hard to achieve. Or is it better to hang back, work on less, but get more on commission, right? So your base is lower, but you have less pressure because they only pay you on your progress. So it's a double-edged sword when you get that big, juicy salary, right? Because the time's ticking versus taking maybe a lesser salary with more of a bonus commission.
Okay, so let's talk about that, though, because do you think that between those two options that one will get you more time?
There's one that fits me the best.
Which is?
I want no money, but I want all the reward of the money that I earn.
Okay, so you like...
Agree.
Okay, so both of you like 100% commission deals.
Yeah, I don't want a ceiling.
Well,
I think
go ahead.
I don't want a ceiling. I want to have complete potential. It's all on me, not based on what someone's going to cap me on. Say, well, you're going to make $250,000. Well, if I do that, I want to have the opportunity to make $450,000.
Because Nan's correct. I know in my arena, people who are strictly commission, you get lazy about $250,000. I said $250,000, guys. All right, motherfuckers, and I say that with complete contempt for you and respect for the guys who do that. But I know guys who make $700K, right?
Yeah.
Clearly
So I was going to say it's
commission.
not everybody. Not everybody does what I was saying, but
I'm
have
not
to check
against.
yourself.
I'm not against very technical, very long processes like maybe Clint's and maybe in other technical arenas. if it's a long sales process, I think a salary is warranted, particularly as you make it sideways. You can't drag any of your business with you because of non-compete.
It also goes to what your company's potential is, right? Because we talked about this the previous episode of that higher commission structure versus salary. And, I've been in organizations where you give me this great commission plan, but we're only going to be able to do a certain volume through healthy growth in the company. So you're talking about, 750K is very possible in 15 years when we're at this market level. And if we're not there today, then that's not enticing for me. You're going to pay me for my worth.
I hate when someone is trying to poach you and they're not honest about like realistic.
It's usually not. Yeah, that's the key, right? Is that they're not lying. They're giving you the math problem that works out. What they're not giving you is the actual details of how long it would actually take to get there.
So I have Savio. So it's almost like the multi-level marketing, in real corporations, and not that multi-level marketing is not real, because it is. It's not brick and mortar, so it's the easiest. If you want to go to sales and you still have a regular job, I'm not knocking multi-level marketing. It's just the smoke and mirrors that exists in a lot of corporations out there.
Oh yeah, I was working at AT&T and making pretty good money for being a retail salesperson. I was making about 70 or so, and
it's more than I paid you.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
I don't feel
quit.
bad for that statement, but I'm like surprised, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, you
made some serious cash before you came to see me.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And
how did you stay with me so long?
You painted that picture that Clint was talking
about. Yeah, you painted a pretty good picture.
So I fucked you over. My bad.
No.
Sorry. My apologies, bro.
And someone came in. I sold them a phone. They come back the next day and say, "Hey," and I said, "Oh, is the phone okay? Were you stuck or something?" And they said, "No, I just really liked how you handled the interaction. Looking to see if you want to make a change." It's like, "Well, I'm pretty happy, but I'll take your card and we can have a call." And it was someone from Chase Bank. Oh, yeah. And I said, "Now look, here's the deal. I make pretty good money here, for being 26 years old and not having a degree and everything else." Yeah, I was doing pretty good.
Agreed.
And no prospecting and no cold calling.
Yeah, they just walk in and talk to you.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And she goes, "You're gonna make the same money." Didn't ask me how much I made. Just told me I was gonna make the same money, but you're gonna have Sundays off, and you don't got to worry about retail blackout. And I was like, "Oh,
what's retail blackout?"
So retail blackout is this thing that happens in retail that you cannot take any vacation between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Okay,
right?
I get you now.
And so I get super excited, right? I'm, young enough to just take this woman at her word, and I go through the hoops and get this job over at Chase, and the starting salary was $32,000.
There you go.
Right?
Well, not to mention it's kind of probably the first time you've really been recognized for your talents at that point, so it feels good. So you're like, oh, finally somebody's recognizing all this hard work that I put in, right? Now I'm getting recognized.
A little bit,
So you stepped into a topic that we talked about earlier, negotiation.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't do any of that.
I don't know if we're going to do that now, but that is a very important topic.
I didn't know. And a little anecdote about the story was on the day of the interview, my garage door sensor was not lined up. Right, so like it would go down a little bit and then go back up. And I'm like, I'm going to be late for this interview. I'm going to blow this opportunity. I'm going to be working at AT&T for forever, and this is going to be miserable. And I got so mad, I turned around and I punched a hole in the wall. Right, which is not normal for me. I'm not that easy to anger. I'm not Clint. Oh, that sounds way better. So something just changed. But thanks, Paul. So
I thought I was in an ocean.
I punched this hole in the wall, and then I fix the sensors, and then I go, and I'm fine. I get the job, and then. Like 4 or 5, they put me kind of in the hood, right?
Chase in the hood.
Chase
wait
in
a
the
second.
hood.
My daughter banks at Chase.
No, hold on.
Wait a second.
This
Let me back up.
This was right after Chase bought all the WAMUs, right? So there's a bajillion different locations, and I was at the one over by Ridgely Country Club, right? So I'm thinking this is going to be awesome. I'm right by the country club. Well, if you're country club living, you don't get to deal with someone like me. You get to work with a private client banker, which I am not. So that left just the other end of the spectrum to work with, and
nothing wrong with that. They have money.
Hey, some of them, and it was not a great experience, and I was pretty miserable. And I never fixed the hole in the wall because it was just like this reminder that,
of bad mistakes.
hey, some things don't happen for a
Garage
reason.
door should have stayed down. I should have missed that interview.
Exactly. I should have stayed where I was.
You don't do like I do and hang that perfect size picture over the hole, even though it doesn't make sense on the wall at all.
Is that why I see so many photos?
So
on
many
the wall
randoms. Yeah.
That's the only reason why Clint has
I'm
pictures of his kids on the wall.
When I go to your house, I'm gonna start moving them all to see where the hole.
Why do you have a picture of yourself 3 foot off the ground? No, don't worry about that.
My kids were little ones.
So you get poached, and this person probably got a referral for bringing me into the company, and they just told me what I wanted to hear. It was not unlike when I joined the Army and I got told everything I wanted to hear from the recruiter. Yeah. It's just like college, but with drill sergeants. That's literally what somebody told me. But yeah.
That's a misrepresentation.
Yeah, a little bit.
That you should have seen coming.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Once again, I've not always been this smart.
That's why it's college means. Question.
Yeah.
So got into there, realized I wasn't super happy, and then made a move. But it was rough. It was really rough, right? Because I had made a significant pay cut to go down to go do this thing,
right?
And wasn't happy and was kind of stressed out. And this is before the kiddo. So
my quick question.
Sure.
So you're making 70.
Mm-hmm.
They bring you in at about half of that. So what was the potential that you saw in that whole arena financially to square you with where you were leaving? I understand no Sundays, no retail blackout, but go ahead.
It was much more about that, honestly, the quality of life. That was super important to me because at the time I was training in Kung Fu, and that was my big lever. I wanted to be able to go do more of that. Mm-hmm. And because of the hours and retail, that was hard, and having to work on Saturdays and Sundays, it was hard. And that was the biggest motivator, was because I was prioritizing Kung Fu over money, because at the time I wasn't really thinking about 70K as 70K. It was just the money that I was making, and I should be able to make this anywhere, which was a mistake.
How did you think you were going to be able to double, or even more than that, increase your salary?
So the way that it works at Chase, at least whenever I was there, was very partner driven, right? So you're not supposed to really sell much of anything. Like, I open accounts and I do credit cards and stuff like that, but investments go to someone else. Mortgage goes to someone else, which sounds like a really great idea. But if you have a partner who can't shut the front door, then it's kind of all for naught, right? So
you were partnered with somebody that would take and push them to other avenues in the bank.
Exactly. If we were sitting down
with just passbook savings accounts, setting up accounts, and doing that kind of stuff.
Exactly. I'm the first line of defense, and during this time, Chase was kind of known for this thing about work in the lobby. So anyone who walked in, they got full court pressed. Hey man, how's your day going today? Why don't you come sit down with me? Let's go over your information. Make sure that you're still using all the right banking products. We'll have someone else handle the transaction for you. So that way I can pull up your accounts, figure out what's going on. And people hated it so much. You would have these people come in, and they were just holding their like head up like blinders. All my information's correct. I don't really want to talk to you, because they just want to handle their business and get out of there. Miserable.
Sounds like a car dealership.
Yeah, you'd walk in and there'd be 4 of us all sitting right there. They're like, "Hey, can you handle my trip?" "Oh, well, I'm not a teller, but let's go sit down, and I'm going to try to sell you this credit card."
So as a C, that seems really weird that you would have done that.
I liked it because it was going to allow me to get my my investment licenses, so that way I can get paid on the referrals. Because I like this idea initially of, oh, awesome, I'm going to have people who know more than me, which is a huge thing as a C. So that way I don't have to learn it or know it as inside and out as they do. I can just say, oh, you've got some really big balances. Have you ever thought about doing anything more with this? Exactly.
Leaving it on the sideline. Yeah,
and I love that, right? Sure. And doing the same thing with mortgages, because this was in 2010. So, the mortgage market was still like kind of coming back, and,
sure. Interest rates were low. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Resurgence as we came out of the dip. Yeah. Going upward. Sure.
And I just thought they did a really good job of selling it, right? Mm-hmm. Everything you do, or at least whenever I was there, you got a point value. So if I set someone up for online banking, I got 25 points. And if I opened an account that was a new account for a new household.
It is multi-level marketing.
It kind of was, right?
All the point system. Love
it. And so I did that for a year. And then there was kind of this mass exodus from everyone moving from Chase to this other kind of regional bank.
Wells Fargo.
No, not Wells Fargo, actually.
Fucking joke.
Yeah.
Run if you're with Wells Fargo, and I hope I get sued. Bunch of fucking crooks.
Okay,
but go ahead.
All right. So
Just saying.
That was Doc Al that said that.
Exactly. Check it out. Bring it.
So they did a really good job, and I was just looking for the change because the thing about AT&T, and this is kind of how it works at most cultures, right? It's very much what have you done for me lately, right? And so I was consistently, top 1 or 2 in the store, hitting all my accelerators and getting really good commission checks and everything else like this. And then I had 1 month, and the regional manager was like, "Well, what happened to John?" And they're like, "Well, he just had a bad month." And my manager was trying to like stand up for me, and she was like, and all of a sudden I started getting the cold shoulder, started getting ignored, started doing all these things.
For 1 month?
1 month.
That's crazy.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't have excelled, if you'd have been, let's say, number 4, and that was the norm for you to have that low month, would you have had the same recognition? And like, would they have busted you down for that?
No,
Because
I see
that. I see that a lot, right? There's performers that perform at this level, and they're always your number 1 sales guy. And then when they have a dip, you're like, well, what the hell happened to that guy?
Well, there's so much more pressure, right? Because you are.
That's what I'm saying. It's
You're
like
a workhorse.
that number
for
4
lack of a
that you got that's always performing at that lower level, and then he has a bad month. It's like, he's a bad salesman.
Yeah,
and you kind of let him slide. Right?
Yeah, he's C team.
Well, not me. I don't let him. But yeah, people let him slide, and it's an interesting culture that people create around sales teams.
Well, it just means that you're not really coaching your team very well. I think is what it really leads it.
Definitely not leading it, right? You're
absolutely
just kind of letting it happen, letting one guy kind of run it all, which usually, my experiences, I've seen that a lot. One guy's your front runner, and then everybody else is kind of filling in those little gaps.
Yeah, and I had a good manager at AT&T, and I had a terrible manager at AT&T, and then the regional manager was just kind of always bad, but it really kind of clued me in because the first manager, who was terrible, was a stickler on certain things, but that was just because he wanted to be able to sit in the back and just kind of watch us on video. So he would send us an email that said, "Hey, I saw this client just walk in, and no one like looked up and said hello. What are you guys doing?" It's like, why aren't you out here?
That's called a bird dog.
What's a bird dog?
Oh, in construction, it's terrible, right? That's that guy that sits in his truck eating a sandwich. Is like, "Hey, you over there?
Oh,
get over there and do that."
Is that a thing?
Yeah, bird dog.
Interesting.
Hey, sit from your truck or sitting along. I used to see it all the time on like highway jobs. There'd be a guy sitting in a lawn chair, pointing fingers, eating a sandwich. It's like, what are we paying you for? All right, that. So going back to your move to like the banking industry outside of retail, how long did you give yourself? But was there any agreements up front that, hey, we're going to give you 6 months to really see what you do and dive into this? Or
no, actually, and it was kind of interesting because the first 3 months is studying for your licenses, and if you miss that test by 1 point, you're fired, just out the door. Which seems like a very weird thing to do, right? Because they give you a sign-on bonus, to move over there and everything else. And then if you fail the test by 1 point, you're out the door. And it happened to a bunch of people that I was in class with.
But it's called failing, right?
It is called failing, right? But 1 point
or 10.
Yeah,
isn't it sort of the same?
I guess that depends upon the lens you're looking at it through.
Then what about 2 points if you give one? Then what about the next one?
I think there's something to be said for the character of the person, right?
I don't disagree.
So because there was a guy who got hired on at the same time as I did. He was a Black Knight in the Army, right? Which is the Army's professional paratrooper team. They parachute into like the Super Bowl and stuff. And he failed it. You got to get a 72 to pass, and he got a 71. And they're like, "Hey, sorry, you're out." And that dude, he was brand new. This is his first job, like after transitioning out of the military, and was working his ass off and didn't know anything about anything, and was really in there every day and missed it by 1. You're not going to give that guy another chance.
So okay, so what about the female with 3 kids and I mean, where's the cutoff, guys?
I don't know.
At a certain point, I mean, I understand compassion.
Well, standards are important. I'm not going to
I was just
say that they're not.
People
I know.
here, right?
I mean, as the C, I love standards and I love clear expectations, but
failure's failure, right?
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to
nothing against coming back, rehiring, trying again, going to another company, sitting the test through them, right? It's not the end of the world. Chase is not the only place.
Oh,
you
no,
can
not
do
at
this,
all.
right? So
No.
it's not like you locked him out of an industry.
No.
You might have saved him from a lot of heartache.
Yeah, but that goes back to a winning culture that you create, and especially as a leader, right? We talk about this quite a bit outside of this, but did you give him all the tools that he needed to pass the test? Did you help him along the way? Did you try to make him successful so that when he does become part of your team full time because he passed the test, he's got everything he needs to go kill it for you, right? And that's something that, as in a culture that we're trying to create, a winning, successful culture for both sides, right? Not just as a leader, but also on the sales floor for their own bank account, right?
Yeah.
Because they're commission driven, or trying to prove a salary that you've given them. All those things come into play when you really invest. I say invest, but you invest all the tools, to give your team or even yourself, right? If you're not investing in yourself, you're failed already. So you got to go in every day, and you got to know that, all right, this is step one, and I got to kill it at step one to get to step two.
Yeah.
And so kind of what we're talking about today is an interesting topic, because how long is that? If you had to put a time frame on it, how long do you bring in a new guy or you take over a new role? How long do you give yourself, and how long do you give your team before you say, okay, this just isn't working? I've given you all the tools, I've tried, you're not accepting it, or you're just not good at it, right? Because that can happen. This is not your world. How long do you give? I'm interested in all three of you guys.
Well, I personally think you have to see progression pretty quickly. Not in all areas, but potentially there needs to be movement in the right direction where they are actually bringing something to the table. But that is predicated on you as a leader teaching them. You can't just throw people out into a field and not give them direction. Like you're talking about, leading is really important.
Okay,
And then,
so I have a question for you.
All right.
With the internet, all the information we have available about every industry. I mean, I could look up everybody's industry, right? I could
learn
see,
the lingo, learn the talk.
Exactly. Yeah. The vocabulary's there, but then also the matrix of success are there as well, right? What's a good matrix on this particular business model? And then, guys, it's not osmosis, man. You just can't sit there like a warm bucket of spit
I don't
and
think
expect this stuff
is that
to
what
come
you think
to you.
I just said?
No, I think that sometimes we get caught up in it shouldn't be this hard, right? Or I don't have to. Yeah, I think we fail ourselves more than the system fails.
I agree with that. I mean, there's no doubt that good people, truly good people, are going to go and learn their craft on their own time, whether anybody gave them the tools or not, right? That's
easier now than it has been.
Sure.
Absolutely.
15,
That's what
20
I'm
years
pointing
ago.
out.
That's what
right?
Doc's saying.
It's not like you had to wait for the foreman to clue you in because there was this company in this town, or it was a long leap to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's true, then why do we need Clint? Why does Clint need to be at his
We
company?
don't. It's
a great question.
Exactly. I think
wait.
Clint's about to leave.
No, I'm just saying in his come back. In his circumstance.
Come back. Look, she's begging.
Come on.
I'm just saying it's okay to stay.
Thanks.
All right. So
I just think it's
question.
really important to have a leader for the men that are under you, men, women, I don't know who your team is.
Well, some people respond to that better. For myself, I always, look at myself from outside looking in as a self-performer. It's great if I have the leadership, a really good leader, but they have to perform at that level that I expect.
So there we go. That's the answer. The answer is effort. Are they putting effort in, or are they kicking back, going, okay, now what's the next step?
But the flip side of the coin, like Doc says, and there's always a flip side, is that there's people that won't be self-driven, and they need somebody to tell them every step of the way. And my thing is that if that's the team that you've inherited, or that's what you've hired, then you've got to live in those parameters that you've.
Well, let's talk about that, because I think.
Or let's add a dynamic. You get hired in, and your sales team leader is a jerk or lazy or expects more out of his team than he wants to give.
Sitting in truck eating a sandwich.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit, because when we were talking about this topic, Clint said something that culture is like the new buzzword, and that it's something that he's been hearing about a lot. And in my reading, because I do probably more reading about like tech and startups than the three of you.
You sure about that?
I mean, not from like an investment
Pure
side. I mean,
speculation
I'm
on
sure
your
from
part.
like investing and things like that, you're probably way better read than I am. But as far as like building a company and the culture and the everything that goes along with that, I think I'm probably better well read. Is that the right way to say that? I'm not sure.
Do we arm wrestle over this? Or how do
Maybe,
we
I
figure
don't
this
know.
out?
We can fight if you want.
That would mean I'd get my face punched in. But go ahead. I'll take
So-
I
I'll
wanna
pass
know
on
how
that
many
one. Thank you,
stripes are on
John.
your
Thanks for the
belt.
invitation, John. But I'm not interested.
Stripes,
I'll lock the door.
I say that because
Well, then you'll
Al
have
and
to
I
fight because hold on. Did I tell you you're on the payroll?
Oh,
All right, John. Now I feel more comfortable.
Al and I trained at the same school for a very long time.
Me being the junior student, if you hadn't figured that
Okay.
one out.
So, but in sales, there's kind of one culture that everyone talks about, right? That sink or swim, figure it out on your own because that's how everyone else did it, and things like that. And it's not inclusive or welcoming or nurturing at all. It's just very cutthroat.
I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that?
No, not okay with that. But if that's what it is, I think I've done okay in those arenas.
Okay.
yeah.
So quit fucking crying. It's where you landed, guys.
Well, no, I get that, right? But
it's not always.
you
like,
don't know everything you don't know, though.
So
when
so
you're-
that's talking about disc here. That's a very our side of the spectrum.
absolutely, it is
so-
very gut driven.
so
right? I hate that.
Doc and I live in that realm that you throw me, and you're betting on me, and I have to bet on me. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Give me that all day
I-
long.
I'm an S,
however-
and I actually like that.
No,
So-
and I'm not saying that
No,
you don't.
man-
It's just
man does
usually,
well in that
usually
But hold
comes
on.
natural, right?
We just said the polar opposite of that, though, right? You
No.
said it yourself. Did we give him all the tools? that was necessary?
listen.
He's a manager now.
What?
so-
No, hold on. What I'm saying is that the current culture that I see, that you have to do that if you want to make the. If you can't just cut everybody's head off tomorrow and fire everybody and hire exactly who you want,
Mhm.
and you're dealt a hand that you have to deal with,
Yeah.
then you have to develop that leadership culture of, really driving. Did I give them all the tools? Did I give? But when you're talking about just me performing in an arena,
Mhm.
you hire me and you say, "Oh, I'm not giving you any knowledge. Just go kill it for me." I'm okay with that personally. That's what we're talking about.
Or you come into.
I think we're talking about two different things, though. A little
We
bit.
are. So you're talking about the culture of a sales organization.
Yeah.
Right? I'm talking what Doc and I were talking about, I believe, and I'll speak for myself here, but if you're asking me to come into a new job, a new industry, and I don't have that good culture, I don't have that leadership, and you're just letting me bet on me to win and
Mhm.
put food on my own table, I'm good with that because I know deep down I'm going to win.
Okay.
But that doesn't make it a good culture, John. That just makes it what it is.
Okay.
That's what
you're
I'm
not
saying.
wrong. I mean, I
I
agree.
know I'm not wrong.
I-
I am.
Did you really just say that to Mr.
I
Lee over here?
I agree with what
Oh
you're
my
saying, right? And now, because of the work that I've done, right, and where I'm sitting now, you could put me in any role, and I'm gonna do fine, right? I mean, if I went back to work for Al, which sorry man, I wouldn't do. Nothing against you, I just don't want to be in that industry again.
I'm not hired.
Good.
So go ahead.
I would do fine if I went back to banking. I would do fine, but it's because of all this auxiliary work that I've done that arguably the culture is not as important. I think once you're
Well, that's the
a high
question.
performer,
That's the
if I
que-
want to label myself,
That's the
that.
question at hand, though, right? It's like how do you develop the culture if you need to?
Mhm.
How long do you give everybody if you're developing a culture? Because a culture to me is process in this realm.
So you just hit on something. If you understand the process, what are we selling? That's my question, right? Because I know I'm going to follow the same principles that got me to where I'm at today in any given arena, whether it's what you're doing,
Yeah.
Clint,
Mhm.
what you're doing, right, John?
Yeah.
And then that, what we do, right?
It is a process. It
I mean,
really-
it follows the same pattern
It does.
every time.
I think
With the same usual suspects, right?
Yeah.
Along the way.
Well, you're not gonna create a failing culture. That'd be kind of stupid, right?
Well, not
you're
on
not
purpose.
gonna try. You're not gonna try. Exactly.
But
You're-
some companies have that.
Sure, but you're not gonna start setting up processes and putting things in play for it all to fail. That would be silly, right?
Well, but hold on
Stupid.
though, right? So let's.
Not saying it won't fail. What I'm saying is that you don't
Okay.
go with the intention to make it fail.
Well, no
So-
one's intending to fail.
I know, but hear me out. So you're creating this culture with processes to be successful at the end, and you're going to adapt them and you're going to change them, right? No,
No, Continue.
So if you're creating a culture for success, then you're creating processes within that culture to succeed down the road, right? My question, I think what we're trying to get out of this is that when you start putting those processes in play, they're all going to change. A month goes, okay, that didn't work. We need to switch tactics. Hopefully, yeah. And I think that's where the failure comes in, is when you don't, right? You just let it ride.
Well, but hold on though. I don't think that most people, if you're not a C, love the idea of, hey, let's institute a process and let's make everyone say the same things and kind of follow the same process.
But listen, I think everybody here, every personality has a process. Whether you write it down and put it on a spreadsheet, doesn't matter. You go in.
I think he should.
If you
I mean, we all do, because we understand the importance of process, but think about all the other people who were just winging it, man.
Well,
winging is a
process.
Process.
I hope they're listening.
Winging it is a process.
I mean,
traditional sales is a process.
So what are we actually trying to tell people out there? I mean, we've talked amongst ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about what, culture, right? It's the buzzword, right? It's like a couple years ago I heard partnerships. We want to partner with everybody. We want to be your valued partner. Didn't make it wrong, right? Didn't make it a not true statement. It was overly used. And culture right now in my world is being overly used. And what it all boils down to for me, when I hear that word, is, okay, you're trying to create a process, a winning process. That's what culture is to me. And you're getting everybody to buy into that process because it's successful. So my question is when you start that process, you have to start it over, like let's just say day one, right? You come into an organization, they've been doing something for 15, 20 years. You come in, now you've got to adapt this winning culture process. How long do you give that before people look down on you or people look up at you and say, dude, this isn't working?
Wait a second, but if you're hiring into something, you may not have the the ability to change much. You're just along for the ride.
Maybe, but what if you do?
But if you come in, in middle management, or you come in as winner the last, where you were before, and now they expect you to sort of be a leader or a manager in a certain department, that's a little bit different. Sure. So I mean, there are layers to the culture. And not everybody can influence the culture as much as maybe the layer above them and the layer above that, right? Yeah. And it depends on the size of the company.
For sure.
I mean, there's a lot of variables there when you start talking about culture.
Well, and part of that is knowing yourself.
All right. Well, let's get specific then, because if I hire a brand new salesperson that doesn't, let's just say, knows nothing, right? We hired this salesperson because they have the potential to be something great because of their personality exams or what, so
right. So you see some potential.
You hire this person and you start putting them into play in your process, but it's just not working out. You've tried to give them the tools, you've helped them along the way, whatever, or maybe you didn't. But how long do you, I mean, I'm seriously asking, is it 6 months? Is it a year?
So you tell me, how long do you give them?
How long would you expect? Personally,
6 months in my industry. I'd like to see,
because it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, the industry has
because it's lead times, right? Like I can't ask a guy to go grab a job today, bid a job, let the funding get approved through another corporation. I mean, it's minimum of a 6 month turnaround. I mean, but to Nan's point, she said something earlier that was really interesting. And I don't need them to go make their first sale in the first month. What I do need them to do is see that they're working the process. So the progress there and diving into the culture is that there's improvement along the way.
Well, that's why leading indicators are as an important measure as lagging indicators, right? So
and if you go in, or your manager and your people go in, and they're meeting their benchmarks of the number of touches you've assigned, or somebody shows up and says, I got a new sales position. How many touches do I need? Because they look at the parameters of what does it take to make a sale, and you run those numbers, not with ambiguity, but with specificity of here's the leading guy, and I've had a conversation with him. I've gleaned a little bit of information. So really, sales can be boiled down to: are you doing what you should do and what you need to do to make the sale?
For sure.
And I think it's predicated on, when you were talking about hiring someone, are you hiring someone that's new? They probably need a little more time. Their process.
No, if the process stands, they don't need more time. They may need
Well,
to
if
sharpen
they
the
don't
sword
know
a little
anything
bit.
about construction sales.
Well,
then
but the point of it is that if you look back
Oh,
at the
true,
the-
true,
Yeah,
true
like
to
I'm
what you
saying.
say that.
if you look at the metrics like Doc's saying, you look at those lagging indicators, right? That you say, all right, I typically people need to make 50 phone calls a day in order to make a sell at blah blah blah. You go through that cookbook, so to speak. You maybe have to look back and say, okay, well, you're just not up to par. So you got to make, if you want to make this, you got to do 100 phone calls a day, 200 phone calls a day.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
it comes to the
I like
point
that.
in a
Well, I like
leadership
that.
role where you're
Mhm.
saying, dude, it's not scalable for you to do 300. So
You gotta
it's just not
adjust it
working
so
out.
depending upon the person.
Okay, so to your point, 200 bad phone calls is the same as 150 bad phone calls.
Agreed.
Right.
Agreed.
So there's an art to
Mhm.
selling, and then there's the mechanics of selling your
Absolutely.
art. Right. If you're a great artist, you still have to do the mechanics because nobody knows until you pick up the damn phone or get in front of a client. Right.
For sure, right?
Right.
And we're
So I'm saying those are the two dynamics. Look at those separately, all right? How good am I at what I do,
Mhm.
and then how good am I at doing what I should do?
right, but
Right.
you have to have failure. You have to have done
Don't
it.
know. We fool ourselves every fucking day about both of those issues. We
Right.
either think we're better than we are, or we know we're really good, but we think we do more work than what we do.
I'm going to give you guys all t-shirts from my company because this is what I do with my clients, right? Is I'm trying to figure out what are the A players doing that the B and the C players are not? How do we systematize all of that?
Yeah.
Because I'm here to tell you, most people don't have a process, right? And you got one guy over here doing it this way and 3 guys over here doing it this way, and no one understands why they're not performing at the level they want to be. But to back up real quick, because if you're just starting out listening to us, you might not know what lagging and leading indicators are,
good point.
right? Because most companies just focus on the lag, revenue, quotas, sales.
That's all the data
things
they
like
have.
that.
Most
Exactly, absolutely. But if you're running around town just framing on if I can get a yes from someone, right? That you're in for some emotional roller coasters, right? Because you're not going to get a yes from everybody. We're never as influential as we think we
What?
are. Yeah, sorry. But leading
Good to know.
indicators
Good
are
to
the
know.
are the things that you have to do to get to sales, right? Cold calling, networking, asking for referrals, doing all these other things, right? So if you focus on the leading indicators, then you can say, hey, Nanette, you might need to do 25 phone calls to get to a decision maker conversation, and Al needs to do 50, right? And you can, sorry, not,
No, it's a good analogy.
but there's got to be some appreciation for the person, so that way you collect
Which
enough
person?
data. Every person.
Yeah.
Right? Because you got to work with the end in mind, which is your favorite saying. So if I know that the goal is to get $250,000 in sales for the year, how many deals do I need to do to get to that amount? How many calls do I need to get to get to that?
One deal.
Absolutely, right? And then you just
then
figure
extrapolate that out.
figure out the math from there. But that's looking at the leading indicators and not the lag. So if you're new to sales, you're not familiar with this idea, go figure out your numbers about what it takes to get to a closed deal, because that will alleviate some pressure. It did for me, anyway.
Yeah, it changed my whole world. When I was able to pull up, well, and before I even go into this, you have to track all the data first.
Absolutely.
That's step one. Right?
Stop hiding stuff from your CRM. I don't understand. I've got a buddy. So I'm the CRM guy anyway, but I have a friend, and he won't even put stuff into his CRM unless he thinks it's real. And I'm like, well, what does real mean? And he's like, well, it means I have a realistic chance of closing it. I was like, then you have no idea what your percentages are. You don't know how many people you have to go talk to get to a close deal.
Because he's leaving his forward-thinking value undocumented.
Well, but here's the problem, because his company is only concerned about how many leads to how many closed deals he gets, which is not a metric that, in my opinion, anybody should be worried about.
If he puts his leads in, then it ruins his metrics?
Yeah.
And he's worried about that?
Right? So then
He doesn't tell him to go fuck off, right? I got 100,000 leads, but I'm still outperforming everybody in here, right?
It doesn't. Al, you've worked for yourself for a long time. It doesn't really work that way in larger companies.
Oh,
my friend. Yeah.
my bad. Sorry. God, horrible.
Yeah.
Well, horrible.
So you want these people to use this, and they use Salesforce in his company, which is a very expensive CRM, and they make everyone use it, but there's no real standardization about how they're supposed to use it.
Yeah.
But
So you can fudge the numbers pretty easy.
Exactly.
Right. I was going to say,
And then it
everybody's
leads
gaming
to
the number system
absolutely.
for no
And
value
then-
on either side.
Then
right?
it ruins your leading indicators.
Doesn't say.
Absolutely does.
Doesn't help you make more money. Doesn't help your
Mhm.
company with any value.
And then you're just walking around with this weight because some manager in this company is just looking at how much are you putting in the CRM with no other accountability or goals or
on.
anything
No,
else.
Well-
And that douchebag never picked up a tab ever,
No,
like at
never.
the bar.
Well,
What?
It's probably the guy
Right,
that,
but-
you know, his CFO said, hey, why are we paying, let's say, $70,000 a year for this thing that you guys aren't using it? He says, okay, well, everybody go use it.
Yeah, let's
And-
use it.
and look,
Document your
it-
chatter.
Yeah, here's all my stuff. and that may be
Horrible.
but that may be the extent of it, and I think that happens quite often.
I think
Oh, it
it
happens
does, for
all
sure.
Well,
the
yeah, I
time.
was gonna say,
Oh
I
my
think,
god!
I think
There's a
John
reason
can
why
speak to
sales
that.
reps hate
So,
CRMs.
I'll
right?
say this, for example, in my own business right now, in my own company, we are not currently using a CRM in the last month because it hasn't been used for so long, right? And baby steps, right? So I'm trying to dig back in. It's like, okay, if these guys are going to fudge all the numbers and it's going to give me bad data because nobody's ever held them accountable before, then I don't need those numbers. right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yet. I will need them, and we will have
As
to
I
do
say,
this.
you do a lot of that.
Absolutely.
So I was going to say,
It's-
how are you
it's-
going to get
Well,
around that?
But it's your leadership capital, to use the Jocko thing, right? If you make everything a big deal, then nothing's a big deal,
Correct.
right?
That's
So-
right. So for right now, in this first month, and we've talked about milestones and stuff. All right now we're not using this. So right now we're using a Outlook calendar to track some stuff because that's baby steps in getting people used to putting information in. Because if I truly use, especially the CRM that we have, which is, I mean, you can do anything that a CRM can do with this thing, and it's very intensive. But the information input is a lot of time and a lot of resources. And if you haven't done it for a long time, there's no data to go off of anyway. So
Absolutely.
I'm in kind of a situation right now where it's like, all right, just baby steps. Let's just get stuff. I don't even care if you write it down in your notebook so that our weekly meeting, that's our CRM for now.
I was going to say, a lot of times,
Sharing.
it doesn't have to be anything other than tracking
As long as you can.
touches or prospects or.
But
I
here's the
know.
deal.
I know.
Hold on, though.
I'm saying for
No,
the baby step
no,
side,
yeah, I'm
not
gonna-
where you're going.
But there's a lot of people that are they just want to fly just under the radar, right? And so if they're not putting their information in the CRM, they're not tracking their numbers, but they're just, I'm doing okay. I'm in the middle of the pack. I can hide. Right? There's a ton of people that are fitting into that realm, and they don't like the CRM because it just
Should
looks,
they really be in sales if that's the way you wake
Man.
up and go to
Well-
work? Shouldn't you fucking jump off the first bridge that you pass on the way to
No.
work?
Didn't we
No,
just
you
get in
just
trouble
should
for
not.
making a
for,
suicide?
wait, hold on,
No,
Doctor Sales Kevorkian 101
Yeah.
right here.
We're
No,
not
you
we're not
just-
actually advocating that anybody jumps off a bridge.
No,
Unless
we're
it's a
Unless
low
you
bridge
really
with
need, or you really need to, right?
He's a
It's
very
horrible,
bad-
Oh my
right?
God.
You know?
He's a very bad.
And you got a big
very
insurance
bad
policy, right? And your wife makes a ton of money, and the kids don't like
All right,
you
all right,
anyway.
all right. So anyway,
That's
Is that
like
harsh language?
that's a 15-second bleep for Al.
Yeah.
Just-
My bad, guys. Sorry. Let's sing. Let's hold hands and sing "Kumbaya."
Hearts and minds, brother. Hearts and minds.
But what it should be used as a coaching implement, a coaching tool. Hey, right? Because if we have
For
enough
the
data,
manager who's
absolutely,
smart
no,
and
I completely
says,
agree. Now,
and
but,
then right,
you know,
You're- agreed.
But for the not manager, the actual salesperson itself on the daily grind, it's your daily checklist. Like,
Sure.
what do I need to do today?
No,
Well,
I,
go
and I
into
was
my-
about to go
Absolutely.
there too, because I mean, it. So, from a managerial standpoint, you're just looking for a point of contact to the sales force as to what do you got going on, what's happening, how can I help? I mean, if you
Because-
really are the guy who says, I want you making a ton of money because you won't go anywhere, and I want you happy as hell because you won't go anywhere.
I want my sales team pulling up in Ferraris every day.
Oh,
Yeah, I
dude,
mean,
I have not a problem if you show up throwing money in the air,
Mhm.
right?
I hope it's that way.
so
Why not?
I mean, I hope it is, because if it is true,
Then we're all good.
Then we're all
we
good.
are
We're all
all
square.
so fucking golden we can't see straight.
So in one of my companies, I place salespeople for part-time work with agency owners who've got good leads coming in.
So
And-
tell us about that. I mean, throw a shout out for everybody who's.
Oh,
out there.
yeah.
Do
yeah.
it.
It's called Clutch Closers.
Good.
There's not. a
and
whole
we'll talk
lot.
more about that though. And we
Okay.
need to do that.
But the more interesting thing, in my opinion, is that as everybody I talk to is like, hey, what's your expectation for close rate? And I said, I don't care what your close rate is. I just want you to have a 2-call process, right? And I give them a process, and then my biggest metric that I'm looking at is if people are qualified to get to the second call, which is the presentation call, how many of those are you closing? Because if that's a low number, you're not qualifying very well, and that's the thing we need to go work on.
Yeah.
Right? Because in my world, if I qualify somebody,
Qualify hard.
exactly, and then I give a proposal, presentation, whatever you want to call it, like I close 70 to 75%, right? And
Okay.
I don't need you to be there, but if it's 30, that's bad. But then I'm trying to build this culture around, hey, if it's there, let's go figure this out. I'm not going to fire somebody over that.
So when do you go back and decide this brings up a point in my mind. When do you decide that it's not the process but the salesperson, or it's the process, not the sales?
Well, so I'm a technical guy, as we've talked about, right? So every call gets recorded, and then I kind of have office hours, right? Because I have another company, and then I have this other one, and so I kind of got to portion my time out.
Baller.
No,
Go
not
ahead.
really. And so I have office hours, right? So if you're stuck, if you keep getting the same like questions and objections or things like that, like I just make myself available. We'll do call breakdowns, role plays, whatever you want to do to make you get better.
Segment it out to figure
Absolutely.
out where the problem is.
And then a certain part of my time each week is going and listening to these calls and saying, are they taking the things that we're talking about in the conversations, and are they actively using it? Because I'm willing to give somebody the benefit of the doubt and work with them, and maybe too much, honestly. If you are coachable and you're making small improvements, right? So kind of one of you two said it earlier, right?
Both.
Yeah. If you're making improvements, I don't need you to be crushing it. I just want to see you improve. Can you take the information that we're talking about and implement it, right? And that's the same thing as the martial arts conversation, because nothing drives me more crazy than someone who comes up and says, hey, I can't figure out how to do this technique. Well, okay, do this and this and this, and they don't do any of it. I just told you how to do it.
Well, and there's a big thing there too, is if you're doing it wrong and you don't try to get beyond that and do it right.
Yeah.
So you're just gonna sit here in the same class and throw the punches the wrong way for eternity. I mean, what's
Yeah,
good there?
until somebody slaps you in the fucking
I mean,
face.
but-
'Cause sometimes it's all about
Sure.
you haven't been in a fight
You need a little
recently, right?
pain. Pain retains.
So, but here's a big divider, I think, between being gut driven and being fact driven, right? I can stop to myself and think, well, maybe they need to hear it from someone else. Maybe just the way that I'm explaining it doesn't make any sense, and they're not getting to that aha moment. Because we've seen that at the Kung Fu school, right? You know, I would explain something, they wouldn't get it. Someone else would explain it, and then it would be like lights on. Okay, so there is something for the right teacher for the right
Yeah,
student.
I'm that guy. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole.
I need to hear it
gist
from
of
the right.
that,
Exactly.
It matters.
Absolutely, right? Because I'm going to overtalk and give you all the details, and Clint doesn't want any of that
No,
stuff,
just
right?
Do it once, get out of the way. Let me try.
Yeah. Can I punch him? Yes.
Mm.
Okay. So my thing is, are you progressing? Are you getting better? Because if not, and you're telling me you are, or if you got some ego or something, then I don't have any time for that. But I'm willing to work a lot with someone who is like really eager to improve and eager to put in the time, right? And I get that from you, right? Because you have your statement that you don't fire anybody; they fire themselves. And
Most of the time, sure.
and
only
when I say
lying,
you, I'm talking
stealing,
about-
yeah, lying
right?
and stealing. Yeah, that's the only.
Maybe I would just have to fire you.
I'm always expendable, man. I say that to myself every day.
And that's how I think about it, right? Because my goal for Clutch Closers is, to give salespeople a laboratory so that way they can go work on the hard stuff.
Mm.
You know, it's not your main pipeline. It's self fulfilling, right? Because there's leads and these agency owners are doing everything that they need to do. So I just want to put you in a lab set where you can work on the hard stuff, the stuff that you don't feel comfortable doing with your main pipeline because it's tied to your main income. So this is a place for you to practice.
Yeah, so talking culture, that sounds to me, even myself, that sounds like a fantastic culture that I would want to be a part of at the top or the bottom, right? Coming in new.
Yeah, but I can't afford you.
No doubt. Have to sell one of them companies, buddy.
Wait a second. What's minimum wage?
Oh, so here's
what
my
state?
deal. The way that I do Clutch Closers is that everybody is commission based only. And the reason why I do that is because I also don't allow anyone for them to make Clutch Closers their full-time gig. Because I feel like the minute you have that in your commission base, you're going to feel that pressure and you're going to start bringing on bad deals. And I don't want any part of
We
that.
talked about that.
We have talked about that, yeah.
Last episode, I
Yeah.
believe.
There is-
something that we pushed pretty hard.
Yeah, there has never been a moment in my life where the pipeline has gotten deeper and I've gotten more anxious. It just hasn't ever happened.
Yeah, in my experience, especially in my business, because of the long lead times, right? The 6, 7 months, maybe even 18-month lead time on a project. The worst thing you can do is have a starving sales guy bring in a bad 10-month lead.
Yeah.
Right, that I'm going to work on for 10 months, and you tell me all this is qualified, and I work on it, and then, oh, it turns out they were using somebody else the whole time.
But you're telling me you wouldn't pick up in 10 months that
I'm
it
telling
was
you,
a bad
it's even
lead?
happened to myself.
Well,
It's even,
think about the sales managers when there's no CRM and you have a pipeline
don't
meeting
know.
and you got 5 guys in there and they're like, man, I got this one deal, boss, and it's going to close. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be this. And then you don't know if you're getting told the truth or not. I mean,
happened
hopefully
to me last week. Happened to me on Tuesday. Hey, I got this awesome lead. Okay, cool. Tell me about it.
Mhm.
Well, it's, look, this guy he's a good friend of mine. He's got all this, and like he's hitting all the great buzzwords that I want to hear. And I just said, okay, well, let's develop this a little more. Let's go talk to him. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask him some tough questions to get him through this process. Yeah, no problem. So when we finally met, and I asked one question, hey, is this a cocktail napkin or is this a real deal? Like, are we actually gonna? Well, right now it's in my head and I'm trying to
Oh, yeah.
It went from this is gonna close and this is gonna be our first quarter revenue. This is happening, dude. To dude, I don't even know if I could ever get funding for this project.
And so I just went back. So how long did it take you to get there?
Half a day.
Exactly. When you said 7 months, I
Oh,
said you're
yeah,
not
no.
seeing it in
But
7
what
months. Because I know you to be sad. I mean, you bring to the fucking.
but
I'm
look-
surprised it took you half a day, honestly.
Well, because I had meetings.
Well, so that's what I was going back to, because
No.
you stay on top of stuff.
No.
So if you see a big
what I'm
hit,
saying is that sometimes you get bought into your own process where it's like they've met all the points. All right, now we're moving forward, but that next move forward might be 6 or 7 months down the road. That's that long lead time. So right, so sometimes you hit all the hot points and things change in 6 or 7 months.
Okay, and so let's go back to, yes, on the initial basis, you got your culling questions and you put your hard answers to it. Then the rubber meets the road of the company has to start bringing stuff to you. Then they got to start showing you budget and the ability to pay or at least engage and make a commitment at this level. I mean, you keep your finger on the pulse. And I understand you can go 7 months and it still turns to a shit show.
Yeah, me
can't
personally,
be,
but some people that aren't, some people hit all those right questions and they book it in their forecast, right? It goes into your sales CRM, you slide it to, future you're forecasted, and now you've got that thing sitting in quarter 3. You're in quarter 1,
right?
And this thing's sitting out here in quarter 3. This is a home
And then
run.
You're hoping,
and you never touched base in that 6 or 7 months, or you just didn't develop it.
And that's hard. I mean,
it is, and that's the thing, though, is
that hurts the sales manager.
Yeah, because what happens if that one job, and this happens in my business a lot. What happens if that one sale in quarter 3 is 70% of the revenue you make, and it just went away?
Yeah.
Oh shit! But the problem is
we feel it on the smaller level here too.
But
it happens to everybody.
But the thing is I can't go back in time 6 months
you can't
to develop a new relationship for quarter 3.
And that brings up a key point that our biggest our biggest nemesis is time, right? Relative to the sales process.
Definitely is mine.
Because you're either on salary or commission, and commissions are good, but they have to be sustainable. And so if you're in that sales arena, literally the amount of time you spend qualifying, I mean, if it's not wisely spent, then it comes back to haunt you back in the day, as you go down the road.
So I think we're going to continue this conversation in the next episode.
Yeah,
because I think there's more to talk about here.
I think it's a good part too. I think we just started digging into some layers that are pretty good topics. I mean, I'm learning. Okay. I'm learning as much as anybody.
So we're not going to do a throwdown because we'll do the throwdown at the end of episode number 2.
No, let's do the throwdown right now.
You want to do the throwdown now?
Absolutely, because some people may just pick this and just
points
let's hit the buzz. We got a few minutes.
Oh, all right, Paul, hit it. Team D.
Yeah.
What you got?
So we talked about a lot of things here, right?
We did.
I'm gonna hit on a couple of key points that I think that are really important, maybe because they're front and center in my life right now. But the culture that you create and the leadership styles that you have. Speaking specifically to a D out there, it is really tough for you to not want to throw all your effort and focus on the problem at hand because you think you can solve it, right? oh, I know how to do this better than anybody. That's why they hired me. So I'm going to go do that. But maybe you're not in that position as a leader, right? So throwing all your efforts into the problem, you're not creating that culture that you want everybody to buy into. All you're doing is basically putting a plug in a big hole, right? And just hoping that it holds for a while.
Like your gas tank?
Like my gas tank. We'll talk about that later. Thanks, Houston.
There's somebody responsible for that. We're just still hunting.
I hope he's listening.
Exactly. If you're out there, you're fucked, man, because we're all for coming for you.
Retribution. This idea that you know, as a leader, you're not going to give everybody a chance. You're just going to cut until you find that person that fits. You can. That's a way, right? People do that, and I guess there's successful people out there that have done that. It's probably not the most scalable way, and it's definitely not the right way in my mind morally to do something, right? You got to give people the right tools, the right training that they need. Make sure you put your effort in. So when you do that first quarter review with them, you bring your employees in and you sit in front of them, you know that you've given them all the tools. And kind of going to your point, Doc, is like, you fired yourself here, man. I gave you everything that you needed. We were tracking, we're doing all this stuff. You have all this information, and you just didn't put it upon yourself, or maybe you're just not good at it, right? And that's a tough conversation to have. But the point is that can happen. So if you're out there listening, take that ego, and put it into the process of what you're trying to develop, right? Maybe you are the best. Make them the best too with your knowledge. Maybe that's the ticket.
Awesome. Al?
I see this as two scenarios. One, you're moving from either being brand new or you've done some sales and you're moving into a new team. Show up and perform, right? To show off your talents to your managers. Don't get bogged down. Understand the matrix of where you're going, the new sales routine, or even if you're just, waking up tomorrow and you're going to try to do better on Monday than you did last week. Wake up with that new metric of what does it take to succeed and what are my benchmarks and how do I define success? And then if you're the sales manager and you're coming in and you're trying to build that culture, focus in on, what does success truly mean to your staff? And how do you promote that success? And it's a little weak, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Nanette.
So I just think, how I talk about it all the time. Effort. That's how you unlock your potential. If you're just stagnant, you're not trying to improve each day, you will not improve. I mean, you're just going to be a failure, I'm afraid. I know that sounds terrible, but I also think that anyone can follow a process, pretty much anyone, but you have to be a leader. It's great to have a leader, but you also need to be a leader to blaze that trail. You can't just sit back and want someone else to step you through the process. So good process. I love that, but I do think it's really important to be a blazer also, really get out there with effort and succeed.
Awesome. For C's, you're going to have a lot of questions and you want very clear expectations. And most people are not really great at doing that, right? A minute ago, Al said, show up and, put in the work. Well, what does that work mean? And for a C, you got to find that company that is going to allow you to ask those kinds of questions and get really clear, concise information, because that's what you need to feel comfortable to go out and do the things that are outside of your comfort zone, because you got really clear, detailed information about how to go do that and be successful. And if you're not going to get that, then you probably need to make a change, because C's don't really want to figure it out on their own. They want to learn it from somebody else. And if you're not getting that where you are, but you're somewhat successful, you can make a change. You don't have to stay at a company where you're not happy with the culture or happy with the manager. If you're successful in sales, somebody needs you. So that's all I got for the Throwdown.
Awesome. Cool, guys.
So we're going to continue with part 2. And before we do that, if you're listening to this and you're not happy with your company culture, someone else who's in sales but they're not happy with their company, send them this. Have them reach out to us. Everything is at Sales Throwdown. We're going to start taking more questions from the listeners, so that way we can have some fresh points of view and things. So everything is at Sales Throwdown. If you want to take the assessment because you're not sure where you are on this range, you might have a little bit of Al, a little bit of Clint, or one of the other versions. No jokes, Al. Reach out to us, assessments@salesthrowdown.com, and we can get you hooked up. Thanks a lot, everybody.